Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. Today's video is a little different. It's not street photography. Instead, it's for the birds. I went to Marymore Park with my friend David Inman, who is an amazing wildlife photographer. I'm going to leave his Instagram information right down below, as well as a link in the description, so I highly encourage you to follow him. So we went to Marymore Park in Redmond, Washington on an early summer day, and it was quite sunny, which was a challenge number one. Challenge number two is I don't do this type of photography very often, so it's something I'm learning. I'm going to talk more about my lessons learned at the very end of the video, but I want to share these photos and process with you because it's something I'm learning new. I want to make this a little diary of my process of learning this type of photography. So I hope you enjoy the photos you're about to see, but also kind of warn you that I have lots to learn about this genre of photography. So I'm going to share the photos, and at the end, I'm going to share some lessons learned. So here come the photos. All right, so there you have the photos on that day. I didn't intend originally to make a video on this day, but I thought I'd share this process. I thought I'd share a bit about some of the things I'm thinking now that I've seen these photos and done this process one time of learning something new, trying something different. So thing number one I learned from this is to be patient and gracious to yourself when you're learning new things. Anytime you try something new, you often don't know what you don't know. So be patient with yourself, try new things, enjoy the excitement of learning new things, but know that it's a process and a journey, and whatever you try something new, you're not going to be an expert at the beginning. Lesson number two I learned is that you have to see differently in a different environment. I'm used to, for the past few years, seeing photographs and finding photographic things in an urban environment, in the city, on the street, or sometimes in Bellevue Botanical Garden as well. I can find those photos pretty easily. So while the experience of being a photographer for all these years translates to this new environment, the way you see is a little different, and you have to spend time and energy and practice in doing that. Lesson number three I learned on this photo adventure was that settings really matter, especially shutter speed. I was running, oftentimes my shutter speed was too slow and there was too much motion either from me with the camera or the birds in flight. So go ahead and crank up your ISO, trust the noise reduction in software, trust the image quality of your camera, but turn that ISO up, get your shutter speed to shorter duration. That's something I need to remember, which is different than street photography. Lesson number four I learned from this one day was how much light matters, and that I'm looking for a different kind of light in doing wildlife photography than I am for street photography. This was a very sunny, high contrast light day, which I love for street photography, but it was more challenging in the way it renders the subjects than a cloudy day or sunrise, sunset, or fog. So, got to pay attention to the light, go at different times than I would for street photography. Lesson learned. Lesson number five I learned, which kind of connects with seeing differently in a wild environment versus an urban environment, is that there are different elements interacting with your subject that creates different challenges in creating cleanish compositions, finding the subject in the midst of twigs and branches and leaves and all that stuff that is different than when you're creating photos in a city environment. So seeing differently, creating different compositions, moving feet, finding different angles is a different process than it is for street photography. Lesson number six, everything is different at 600 millimeters. Oh my goodness. It's such a small little view of the world, but you get up close, it's really wonderful. And there's more different technical challenges to that, from technique of holding the camera, again, with shutter speed being fast enough, using a burst mode so that you get one frame and maybe a few that is really super sharp. So I still have lots to learn in using that kind of a focal length and seeing the world differently that way. Lesson number seven I learned is that I got a crash course in learning much more quickly some of these things I've already mentioned by having David with me, who's more experienced at this. So having him around to help point out different things, make suggestions, things I missed, compositions and subjects, he was pointing them out and helping me along the way and sped up that whole learning process by quite a bit. So I'm really grateful for that. And I know David and I have plans to go back out different times a year, different times of day, back to the park and see what we can find again. Lesson number eight that I learned is that even though when I got back and looked at the photos on my computer, I wasn't thrilled with them. I had a great time on the walk. It was a great time conversing with David about techniques and camera gears and geeking out about all this stuff and catching up and reconnecting a little bit. It was a really good time. And even though I don't love the photos, I loved the day and the experience. So that's a reminder to me that I want to be less results oriented and enjoy the process, the learning, the journey, all that fortune cookie stuff, which has a lot of wisdom in it. So I'm really glad for that, the day and the things I learned, even though the photos aren't exactly what I wanted, but I'm learning more. Lesson number nine that I learned is that looking at these photos, I think 10, maybe even 5 years ago, I would have been thrilled with almost any one of these photos. But I think that's a sign of growth and experience that I'm looking at my photos more critically and I'm wanting more in refining what I'm photographing, making statements, saying different things than just factually documenting stuff. So kind of ironically, I'm glad I don't like these photos. I look at that as a place that I have room to grow and something I want to work on. And so that's the next step, is to continue that process of growth and learning and challenging myself, even though I'm not happy where I'm at right now. So lesson number 10 I learned is that now I kind of want to try the Fujinon XF 150 to 600 millimeter lens. This type of photography is pretty technical and it is pretty gear dependent. Street photography you could do with any kind of lens, from a super telephoto to a wide angle lens, anything in between. You don't need a very fast lens. You don't need super high image quality. One of the things I noticed in the combination of the 70 to 300 plus the teleconverter is quite a bit of blue fringing around branch edges in high contrast areas, which it's not my favorite thing, and I can fix it a little bit with software, but I want to see what the image quality looks like with that dedicated 150 to 600 millimeter lens. So it gave me a little bit of gear acquisition syndrome in the midst of it all. So those are some of my thoughts and lessons learned from this photo experience. I know I have lots more to learn, and I'm really looking forward to it, and I enjoy the process. So I'd love to hear what your process is for learning new things, what your thoughts and strategies are, and the lessons you've learned from photography. So please leave that in the comments below. I'd love to have a conversation with you. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate a click on the thumbs up button. Thank you very much. More videos like this will be ahead, both street and maybe landscape photography and wildlife photography, who knows. But if you want to find out, please click the subscribe button, and then you'll get to see them in the future. So speaking of the future, until we meet again, I hope you stay safe, stay well, and have fun creating photos. Bye for now.